Thanks for joining the show. All right, how about this? You'll remember that we did a story about a few days ago, I think it was, about spiking bond yields in Japan. At first, you might have thought that was a little nebulous, but no, it's telling a story, right? Their 20 and 30-year yields jumped to levels they hadn't really seen since October of 2000. So that's 25 years ago. We did that story because it's a good example of what can happen when you don't take care of your fiscal business. Now, I hate to say it, but it looks as though we're starting to see some cracks here in the U.S. Now, there are those that aren't happy with how our debt and deficit is not being addressed in that big, beautiful bill. We had a pretty lackluster 20-year bond auction yesterday, and we saw the equity markets take a turn south when that 30-year yield traded through that 5% level. Today, there's more upward pressure on yields, with the 10-year yield trading up through 4.6%. Now, it's backed off a little bit since, but still, it just feels like everything wants to elevate just a little bit more. Now, I've also said, that these rates, in and amongst themselves, they're really not crazy high. But what is interesting is the velocity of the moves higher, right? That's really more of a bigger deal than the actual rate itself, I think. But my next guest, I'm sure, will have something to say about this. Please welcome to the show, Ms. Nancy Tengler, all the way from Scottsdale, Arizona. Thank you very much. She's with Laffer Tengler there. Well, I don't know what you think about it, but it's an interesting thing here. And you could say it's because we don't keep our fiscal house in order. There are some vigilantes out there. But at the same time, Nancy, 5% doesn't seem that high to me.
No, me neither, Scott. I think, I was talking, our head of fixed income, Byron Anderson, I was talking to him about this the other day, and it's part of the problem is you've got a lot of much younger people trading in bonds. And so they haven't lived through some of this velocity and the higher interest rates. And I think we talked about this last time, the 10-year was at 7%. For most of the 90s, and between 7 and 8%, actually. Fed funds was above 5. So these are not extraordinary interest rates. At some point, we're going to get a reaction. I mean, my biggest disappointment was that the one big, beautiful bill, we're calling it Oh Bubba at Laffer Tengler, but it doesn't have much in the way of growth, but it has a lot of spending. And I think that's got to change at some point because we need growth if we're going to keep spending.
Well, I mean, yes, I agree. And you can't cut yourself to prosperity. A lot of businesses try to do that, and ultimately it doesn't work. So right. I did listen to Kevin Hassett talk the other day, or maybe even yesterday morning, I think it was. And he's one of the few people out there, I think, that Larry Kudlow would like him because he was talking about 4% growth maybe, and there's been some crazy 5% put out there. I don't think we'll get to 5%, but Hassett actually did say we have a chance of a 4% growth rate. Well, that will help lessen the blow of not taking care of our fiscal markets, right?
Yeah, 100%. I was just hoping to see a little bit more tax cutting in the bill. So there was no cap gains tax cut, at least as it's written currently. They didn't reduce the corporate tax rate lower. Still pretty good. The 100% expensing is important. But I agree with Kevin. I think the productivity that we're seeing at the company level from generative AI, agent AI, all of the variations of AI is real, and it's improving margins and it's cutting expenses. Microsoft's laying off 3% of their workforce. Meta's using AI to write AI code. And so, they need fewer programmers. So I think we're going to continue to see that. We're seeing it in old economy companies as well. And that will allow us to drive growth to that 4% level. I don't think that's unreachable. If that happens, then the good news is, we will see at least the deficit come in, and ultimately we'll be able to pay down some of the debt. I mean, that's how Clinton did it, although it wasn't as onerous.
Well, they're trying to. There's a little bit of a fast one trying to be. I think they're trying to market themselves with making the debt to GDP look a little bit better. That doesn't float with me, and I don't think it floats with you either. But it'll be interesting to see if we ultimately can grow our way out of it. I don't know, but if you saw this or not, but it's just as an aside, because you said capital gains a little earlier. But I did a story yesterday that our friends in Australia, did you see that they're going to start to tax unrealized capital gains? How about that? That's we're not there yet. That's a pretty desperate measure. But to your point about growth, you know what? Am I crazy that sneakily some of these earnings are still coming in pretty good? And I'm not seeing the headlines, but these companies are doing pretty well. I mean, I haven't seen any really bad stories.
I haven't either. So about 80% have beat on earnings, and they've beat by a median of about 6%. interestingly, on revenues, it's about normal. About 61% have beat on revenues by a median of 17%. Now that's backward looking, but we're also getting decent guidance, particularly from the tech names, the sort of tariff-proof names. I would argue technology is the new defensive. You're not getting a lot of protection in consumer staples in this environment. So you want to own the reliable growers. And that's where we've really seen the pops in our portfolio. So I think that's what your viewers should be paying attention to, are the companies that are part of the AI trade, the energy companies, the infrastructure companies, and then the technology companies.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm explaining it right to them when I say this, but I try to tell folks that you want to be involved with companies that are going to be able to take the AI and really make themselves a lot better. All right, so
Yeah.
it's just as simple as that, because it can be Wendy's. It doesn't have to be some big high-flying tech name. It can be any company that really does leverage what AI can do for them, and I think that's probably where you want to be going forward. I mean, we had Ray Wong on the other day, and he has that life cycle of technology, and he thinks that we're getting close to that part where you want to be involved with those companies that are going to actually employ the AI to make their numbers look a lot better.
Yeah, Walmart, a lot of the industrial names, many of the retailers, consumer discretionary names are employing AI to improve productivity. So I think he's right. I think we still have a ways to go on some of the infrastructure names, but so that's the optimism in all this. I mean, this administration did not get us to $34 trillion in debt. They're not necessarily helping. And remember, Janet Yellen was as the treasuries came off, rolled off on the balance sheet, they were, as treasuries rolled off to fund the government, they were actually issuing at the short end. And so the debt went from a coupon rate of 1.8% to over 4%.
Yep.
That actually is the problem. So we need to see rates come in for that, if not for that reason alone.
I'm also looking forward to the next round of inflation numbers because you know what? Everybody told me that these tariffs and what was happening with the new administration was going to be terribly inflationary, but I'm still not seeing that. Are you?
No, well, I think we now know what the purpose of the Middle East trip. We're calling it Sandstorm, because OPEC has decided to produce more oil. And that's going to drive down prices. Now, there's probably a geopolitical reason as it relates to Russia to try to box them in, but it's going to benefit American consumers. And that's always a good thing, particularly in the summer peak driving season. So oil trickles down, lower oil energy costs trickle down through the economy. So I think you're right. I think inflation is fine. It's not great, but it's also not the tragedy it was a few years ago.
And real quick before we go, I'm also seeing, some of these companies that want to report with tariffs. It seems to me that that's also become a political issue. Some doing it and some not doing it. What do you think about that? 10 seconds to you.
Just know that President Trump is watching, Walmart.
Right. Dude, yeah, at some point in time, Daddy's coming home, right? So you got to be careful. All right. Always great to talk to you. Thank you very much, Nancy. Nancy Dunninger from Laffertangler out in Scottsdale, Arizona. All right, let's take a look at these equity markets that we do look at all the time. Look, we got a 100-point rally in the Dow 30 stocks. That's nice to see after we were lower because we saw these interest rates really starting to tick up. We started the conversation with that, but you know what? They've settled in a little bit here, so there's a little bit more comfort when we talk about these equity markets. Let's move from 30 stocks to 500 stocks. That's also up. We were off 100 yesterday. We're up about 16 here today, getting about what? Well, 1/6 of that back. So that's really what's happening there. Not a lot, but we're still higher on the day. It's a little bit better that way. NASDAQ, how about this? It was a little bit more resilient. It's up 100 after losing about 300. So a third of the move is getting back here today. So that's what we've had happen. And that's the tech stocks, right? And this is the small to mid cap stocks, the Russell 2000. Let's take a look. Well, we're up actually 3 points in the front month, June, after being down 60. That was a big one yesterday. We got hurt there. So 3 points better in that Russell 2000. All right, let's move along. How about that? The big, beautiful bill may have cleared the House, but the drama's far from over. As the legislation heads toward the Senate, a pair of absent lawmakers nearly torpedoed the vote. Yep, one had dozed off, the other missing the mark by seconds. How does this even happen? We're going to ask Jim Yurio when the Cow Guy Close returns right after this.
And that's my family.
Thank you, Maddie. Who'd like to go next? Caleb, come on up.
I'm very excited today because my whole family is here. This is my mom and my brother and my dad.
Thank you, Caleb. You have a beautiful family.
Oh, I'm not done. My family's way bigger than that. There's my doctor, and my nurse, my physical therapist, my receptionist, my Shriner, and of course my buddy Alec.
What's up, Caleb?
Oh, and I can't forget you. You're a part of my family too, because your monthly gift makes it possible for kids like me to get the care we need when we need it the most.
When you call this special number and give just $19 a month, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you. And reminder of the kids you're helping get the care they need each and every day.
It's the generous support from thousands of people just like you that makes it possible for Caleb's family to give him and all the other kids the best care possible.
Please call the number on your screen. With your gift of just $19 a month, you'll become a part of this extended family.
Your monthly gifts helps other children experience the amazing family-focused care that Shriners Hospitals for Children provides.
And we provide this care for every child, regardless of their family's ability to pay.
Because they're not just doctors and nurses, they're family.
Thank you. Thank you for giving.
Please call the number on your screen right now to give. If operators are busy, hold patiently or give at loveshiners.org right away. Big or small, your gift helps us all.
All right, welcome back. You know, this whole soap opera about the big, beautiful bill has gotten a little bit long in the tooth, if you ask me. I'm glad that it's gotten through the House, but we're going to have to go through more of the sausage making when it goes to the Senate. And then there's this. How about it? Let's get a load of this. It's almost hard to say. Representative Andrew Garbarino, like Vinny Garbarino? No. He's a Republican from New York. And David Schweikert, a Republican from Arizona. They didn't vote on the bill. After the bill passed, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, a Republican from Louisiana, he stated, "We really had 217 votes, not 215 this morning." Garbarino did not make it in time. He fell asleep in the back. No kidding. I know, he says. I'm going to just strangle a guy, he added. And then David Schweikert was going to vote and slipped his card in right at the last minute, but it wasn't in time. So, yeah, it was really 217 to 214. But it makes you wonder, on something this important, how can these legislators fall at the last hurdle, let alone fall asleep at the last hurdle? With something this important, how does this even happen? I know what would happen to both of them in the private sector, and I think my next guest knows what I mean by that. Please welcome into the show, Mr. Jim Yurio. Oh, Jim, I've been at a few banks before in my life, some of them AAA rated, and those guys wouldn't last too long with that type of behavior.
What's the big deal? It's only literally the fate of the country we're talking about here.
Right?
What's the big deal? It's no big deal. Okay, so I'm going to pose a couple things, though. So now when you look at this is obviously dysfunction at the highest level, clearly. So is it any wonder that we have bond auctions and the rest of the world is kind of starting to pull back because of the current state of our dysfunction? Now, that being said, I'm going to tell a story, and this is kind of a sober story. It's not to be funny at all, but it might shed some light on this. The year is 1985, and I'm at the University of Illinois in the fraternity system, and we are going to integrate the fraternity for the first time in ever. It was going to be the first fraternity that was going to be integrated. So they bring this guy to see me because I'm one of the senior guys in the house. I'm going to meet the guy, and he is absolutely the wrong guy for the fraternity. He doesn't seem like a nice guy at all. I'm like, crap, this is not the right guy to integrate the house with. So I couldn't decide what to do, because if I go to chapter and vote against him, everyone's going to think I'm a racist, when I was kind of one of the guys who may have been pushing to integrate the house. So I just didn't vote. I just didn't go. My point is that I said I had too much homework. I just didn't want to be attached to it. Maybe, Scott, these two guys don't want to be attached to the bill, and they're concocting the story. These are politicians.
I thought about that. Yeah.
So you think it's possible?
Yeah, I definitely had that in my mind. You know, how do you fall asleep, and how do you get your card in at the last minute and not? I mean, those two things seem to me to be almost orchestrated.
That's why I'm having a difficult time believing it. And that's why people shouldn't have believed me in 1985 when I said and couldn't make the vote, because I could make the vote. I just didn't know. I didn't want myself associated with it because I didn't want the guy. By the way, we integrated the house 2 months later, by the way, with a great guy, athlete, played ball with, still friendly with him for 20 years afterwards. That's not the point. The point is, these guys are not dumb. And that's how they're conniving, and they're somewhat nefarious, and they get to where they are by using things like this. So they can go back in 10 years saying, oh, I didn't vote for that bill if anything goes south. And that's what I put as 50% of my chips on that bet.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. So having said that, now that it's gone through and it has to go to the Senate, but Are you like the rest of the world? You kind of alluded to it, that we're not really taking care of our fiscal house very well, are we?
Oh, no, I think I give, there are many things this administration has done that I give an A+ to, but the things on fiscal spending, I do not. I give a C+ at best. We talked a lot about cutting expenses, but we haven't. And by the way, the bond market told us yesterday in no uncertain terms that it's getting a little tired of our act. Now, maybe part of that was that we haven't got the official bill passed yet, and it was the uncertainty of things that made the demand kind of weak in our 20-year auction. Or maybe they're saying, you guys said you were going to cut all the spending. You're not. I knew we were going to run deficits in the short term. We talked about on this show quite a bit,
yes,
because tax cuts usually take a long time before we start to feel the positive economic effects. But the government's saying, the bond market's saying, you got to cut some spending too. So I give them a C+ for this now. They got to start doing something. They got to start doing something quick.
And hopefully that's maybe somebody in the Senate can get that done. Another thing they're trying to pull a fast one on too, Jim, is they're trying to sell it to us as the debt to GDP ratio is going to be better. Yeah, but we're spending more money. I don't like that either. That's not going to help.
No, and it is this much of a good thing that the debt to GDP is getting better. For people who are watching too, if we are the world's reserve currency steward and we're the arbiter of global trade, we do have to run deficits because people have to have things to invest their dollars in if they're going to keep dollars as the reserve currencies. So we have to run deficits and we have to issue bonds. But the level we've been issuing over the last 4 or 5 years is absolutely absurd. The market is going down in the sheer volume of what we have to sell just to service our debt. Like we said before, the servicing of the debt is a bigger line item than the defense budget. We have to figure that out. And by the way, it goes up considerably each time, Mark, the 10-year goes from 3.7 to 4.6. That goes up quite a bit. So we have to literally start. He should just be saying we need to cut 10% from the defense budget. Yeah. But instead, he's saying we're going to build a golden dome for $1 trillion. This is not what we need right now.
Right. And just to make sure everybody's aware, we're rolling over some debt here, right? We got to refi some stuff that's at 1.5, 1.8% to
$9 trillion.
Something that's going to be over 4%, right? That's huge.
It's enormous. It's $9 trillion debt comes due this year alone. And we're refinancing, like you said, from 1.5 to 4.7. The point here is that, by the way, everybody on the planet termed out their debt. Every homeowner, when mortgage rates went to 2.5%, said, you know what, I'm going to refinance here at 2.5%. The only people who didn't term out their debt and borrow from 10 and 30 years instead of borrowing for 2 years and 3 months was the U.S. government.
Right.
Now, I know there was a partial reason for that, but it was malfeasance in a way too. They should be having a lot of 30-year debt, not having to roll it over right now.
And it still just makes me wonder, how brilliant the Irish were. I said it on the show yesterday, but there was a point in time where I don't know what year it was, but remember when we had, I think $18 trillion around the world was priced at a negative interest rate and $18 trillion worth of debt. They went out and we were able to float a 100-year bond at 1% and got the entire thing done.
Brilliant. And by the way, it's not even like exceedingly brilliant. Like you and I, that would have been our first idea if we were sitting in that committee meeting. We'd have gone like, hey, I got an idea. Right. Let's term it out 100 years and we won't have to worry about it. Nobody said that. To me, it's completely asinine.
Right. There was a little chatter here about doing something for like, say, 50 years, but they pulled the trigger, raised their hand, 1%, funded everything for another 100 years. It's just amazing that they got it done. Anyway,
we could have done it for 30 years too, Scott. I'll say we could have just done it for 30. I would have been happy with that. I'll be dead and gone in 30.
Whoever did that needs to be knighted. That's all I know. All right. Before you go, Jim, I think you're celebrating something special today, right?
Oh, I am indeed. It's my 33rd anniversary to the same woman. There it is. You might recognize some of the people in the background. That's one of the big Eurodollar brokers, Mike Capsh over there. I don't know if you remember him.
Yes, I do.
That is my lovely wife, and she is a pain, but she's my pain.
That's right. Exactly right.
Right.
That's all. That's fantastic. Congratulations. I'm right there with you, 33 years, but unfortunately, mine's with two different people. So we're in the same club, kind of.
Kind of, yes.
But it's fantastic that you 33 years is something. Isn't it funny? That probably doesn't feel like it was that long ago. And to this point, I'm going to bring it right back to finance real quick. Jim, 5% rates don't feel that high to me. I'm sorry to say.
Oh, because back then my first mortgage was at 10% in about that same year that I got married. Yeah, 5% doesn't feel that high. 33 years doesn't seem that long. And that was the time for 10% mortgages and when I was single.
There you go. We'll end it right there. Awesome stuff. Thank you very much, Jim Yurio, coming to us from TJM Securities out in Chicago. All right, by now you know I've got my go-tos. That's gold, oil, the 10-year yield, and the U.S. dollar, right? Let's start with gold. I've just brought that one up for us. Down $20 here today. I'll round up on that one. June's down to $32.93, $3,293 as it just backs up by $20. So again, we're not having a $50 or $100 swing on this, just 20 today. So it seems like it's kind of quiet. Boy, how about crude oil? Let's talk about that for a second. There's been a nationwide effort to bring that down. 59 cents lower right now in July to 60.98. Trying to hang out of that 60 line, I guess, if you want to be long it. But you know what? There's pressure around the globe to maybe squeeze Russia out, and you might see this actually come a little lower. You can see as these deferred months go out, November is at 59.36. So there you go. That's oil. Let's take a look at the U.S. dollar. What's happening there? Well, let's see. It's getting a little stronger, 550 points stronger, making a move to that 100 level. That's about the high of the day. We're real close to it right now. And that's because we've seen interest rates pop a little higher. Now, they've settled back in later, a little bit later here today. Let's take a look and see what that 10-year looks like. Initially this morning, when I came in early, it was above 4.6%, folks. We backed off, and we're actually a little bit lower than we were yesterday. But still, as you can see, going all the way back to May 16th, these rates are slowly but surely ticking higher. And it's because people want to get more interest on the stuff that they lend the U.S. because they're just not liking what the U.S. has got going on when it comes to their fiscal order. All right, let's move along. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the commodity markets. We're also going to have a look at some of the cow phone comments, too. That's my favorite part of the day. And that's when the Cow Guy Close returns right after this.
Kubota Orange Days delivers the savings you need for the life you love. Shop a wide selection of equipment at your local dealer, including America's #1 selling compact tractor. And get your perfect match delivered to your door. Designed for comfort and built for performance. Now through June 30th, get 0 down, 0% APR for 84 months or up to $3,000 off select compact tractors. Sales ending soon. Find your nearest dealer at KubotaOrangeDays.com.
RFD-TV Now is more than just a streaming service. Subscribe today and see why we are rural America's most important network.
When the day winds down, stay connected to what matters most. Rural Evening News. Rural America's most important evening newscast. Now, every weeknight at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Soybean meal prices, they have dipped, giving feed buyers a chance to lock in better deals.
Breaking ag policy, market insights, weather, all in one trusted newscast. Rural Evening News on RFD-TV. Streaming and on demand with your subscription to RFD-TV Now.
Next time on the Malpass Brothers Show.
I'm just driving nails in my coffin. Driving nails in my coffin over you, all Leon.
Chris and Taylor welcome special guest, The Cody Norris Show. The Malpass Brothers Show, Saturdays 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on RFD-TV.
We've devoted our professional lives to righting wrongs.
Where a company or a person has harmed another.
For decades, our firm's had the most doctor lawyers in the country.
And for decades, we've won some of the largest verdicts in American history.
We've gotten corporations and governments to reform.
So our community and our nation is safer.
Making people's lives better is a high honor and a great calling.
All right, welcome back. We've done all the equities and we've done interest rates. Time now to do some commodities and see what's up. Let's go with the corn. I brought a corn board up while we were away on break. July's up 1.5 cents to 462.5. That's just 2.25 cents off the high of the day there. The Dees, that's the new crop. We're lower there though, 2 3/4 cents lower, 452 3/4. That's just a penny off the lows. We've only had about a 5-cent range. That's going to be corn. Let's move on to beans. What do we have happening in beanies? Well, they're higher in July, 3 3/4 cents better. 1066.5 is last, and that's in the middle of the, well, we've had a 19-cent range, so that's pretty good. We're kind of towards the upper end of it right now. 1066.5 July beans up 3 3/4 cents. You go to the Novi new crop, 2.5 cents better there. 1054 3/4 is last. All right. From soybeans, let's go to the wheat market and see what's happening there. We're lower. Most of the big losses are up front. July is down 4 3/4 cents to 544.5. Still about 3 1/4 cents off the low of the day. Dees wheat in Chicago, that's off 2 cents to 5.83 1/2. All right, so that's the wheat market, anywhere between a penny to 4 3/4 cents lower across the board, with most of the bigger losses coming up front. Moving out to the hard red in Kansas City, let's take a look at that. Really kind of hanging around the unchanged line. July's down a penny and a quarter to 5.39 1/4. If we move out to the Dees, that's down with just 1 tick, 1/4 cent to 5.76 1/2. So that's what's happening with the hard red. We're anywhere between unchanged to a penny and a quarter lower. Not a lot going on there. That looks to be a pretty quiet trade. Let's move from there to the spring wheat in Minneapolis. Let's go right to the July. That's down 4 3/4 cents to 5.99 1/2. We lost the 6 handle, but we're still about, 1 3/4 cents off the low of the day there. Moving out to the Dees, that's down 3 3/4 cents to 6.32. And again, that's 2 3/4 cents off the low in Dees. We've had about an 8-cent range. All right, so that's spring wheat down anywhere between 3 to 4 3/4 cents across the board, again, with most of the bigger losses coming up front. Let's take a look at cotton. I bring up that cotton board. That's going to show us that we're off 43 points, I should say, in July. 65.64 is last there. And we've got a Dees board down 44 points to 68.27. All right, so that's cotton off around 40 to 44 points there. Moving over from the grains, let's go to some livestock. See the proteins, the meats, whatever you want to call it. June live cattle, that's up $1.52 to 215.67, right? We've got an August board up $1.97 to 210.62. And look at that, $2.22 better bid in October to 208.30. Not bad. Let's move along. Let's take a look at feeders. What's happening with the feeders? Well, we've got a May board that's down 90 cents, but that's going off right here pretty quick. Look at this, though. August up $3.52 to 299.95. We're 5 cents away from 300. We did get a 300 out. 300 spot 20 was the high. We're getting real close right now as we speak. Let's move over to see what the October's got. That's a $3.75 rally to 296.55. There we go. August just ticked to 300. Okay, let's move along. Lean hogs. Let's take a look at that and we'll move along. June down 72 cents to 98.80. And we've got an August board down 32 cents to 102.02. All right, time now to dial up the old cow phone, right? That puts a smile on anybody's face. Rick in Missouri writes, I fear the national debt is a millstone around our republic. Do I have room on Recession Island? Recession Island, believe it or not, we didn't realize how crowded it was for the last 2 or 3 years. But now if you go back and look at all the numbers that the administration before this one put out, we definitely were in a recession. And Recession Island was busier than we thought. How about that? Paul in Florida says, with Australia taxing unrealized profits, I foresee migration increasing out of there, right? I wonder if they have an out migration problem, right? Everybody was always worried about immigration. But we'll see what happens to anybody that's got any money leaving that place pretty soon, right? Remember, it did start off as a penal colony. That's a long time ago, though. How about this? This is Joanne in California writes, I'm so glad your show is on the air. It's a place where the truth is finally spoken. I don't know if it's just the real stuff, folks. I don't even think it's truth. We look at things and think this needs to be talked about, and we put it out there. So we want to make sure that you've got an idea about what's happening with it, and hopefully you do. Right now, it's all about the bonds and this big, beautiful bill. We'll see how that goes through. But we're in some pretty interesting times, that's for sure. All right, we're going to check some more of your comments a little later in the show, but in the meantime, you can text me on this number, 615-983-9681, 615-983-9681. Leave your name and state, don't hold back. That number is, again, 615-983-9681. And we'll get to more of those comments later in the next half hour. But we're going to start here first. Florida just became the latest state to ban lab-grown meat. They joined Alabama, Arizona, and Tennessee and drawn a line between pasture-raised and petri dish produced. While cultivated meat promises a climate-conscious future, I say we stick with the original recipe of cows, grass, and sunshine. We're going to talk to Arlen Suderman about this next when the Cow Guy Close returns.
If you're watching this, I didn't make it. Thanks to people like you and the American Heart Association, my family never had to see this video. I was a healthy 47-year-old, no symptoms. But then my doctor discovered I had a bad heart valve that was beyond repair. The scariest day of my life was when I was sitting on a gurney as I looked and my wife was at my side and my kids had me surrounded. Deep down, you know, this could be it. This could be all there is.
Not having him around for Riley to grow up with and have that papa figure in his life, that would have been hard.
This little heart valve did something really big. It saved my life. I wouldn't be here today without it. The research for this heart valve was funded by the American Heart Association. And that's why I'm asking you to become a monthly donor for just $19 a month. When you do, you'll help fund the next medical breakthrough that could save your life or the life of someone you love. You'll also provide life-saving CPR training and help certify hospitals to give the best care to those who have had a heart attack or stroke. When you give $19 a month, we'll send you a t-shirt just like this one. From the moment you put it on, you'll help raise awareness for heart disease and stroke. Since my surgery, I had a son get married. I had a daughter graduate high school. I had another daughter give birth to a precious boy. I would have missed all that. And that's why it's personal for me.
We're very thankful for everyone who is a donor because it gives us more time.
Every 40 seconds, someone has a heart attack. The next person you help save could be someone you love or even you. Become a monthly donor today by calling or going to helpheart.org because it's personal.
All right, welcome back. Here we go, right? When you wear a cow jacket for your job on TV, well, these kinds of stories flood your inbox daily. How about this? Florida bans lab-grown meat, adding to similar efforts in 3 other states. The legislation joins similar efforts from these 3 states, Alabama, Arizona, and Tennessee. They've also looked to stop the sale of lab-grown meat, which is believed to still be years away from big-time commercial viability. Lab-grown meat, also known as cultivated meat. Does cultivated sound better than lab-grown? I don't know. It's attracted considerable attention in recent years as startups have raised millions of dollars to improve the technology meant to create climate-friendly, there's the climate word, a climate-friendly alternative to traditional meat sources. Cultivated meat is usually grown in a metal vessel from a sample of animal cells. They multiply in a container called a bioreactor while being fed with water, amino acids, vitamins, and lipids. Finger licking good. That sounds great to me. Wow, it's a process that can be difficult to do and scale large enough to create enough food for commercial sale. And then on the other hand, you have a beautiful landscape with cows dotting the fields, heads down, turning natural grass into all natural protein. It's Franken meat versus the real deal. Now, I have my own thoughts as to why these things even are a choice, but I wanted another viewpoint, so I drafted in the next smartest guy I could think of, and that's Mr. Arlen Suderman. He's with StoneX down in Kansas City. Arlen, what's going on? Is this the tree huggers that don't want us to kill animals anymore, or do people really want this type of stuff? What's happening?
Well, this really started as an anti-meat campaign, let's face it, and then it became kind of a fad. And fads, are common in our country. They come and go. And this fad was all about, let's try something new and it's going to be good for the environment. That's the way it was pictured. But frankly, you think about it, the meat animal, the cow, so to speak, is an amazing factory that can take roughage that's high in fiber that we can't digest very well, out into pastures, land particularly that can't be used for crops very well or grow other food, and it can digest it and convert it into a protein source that we can digest. It's an amazing factory that it's able to use and produce a product that tastes good, frankly, particularly if it's been on a grill and has a little barbecue sauce on it. And I think people are starting to read the ingredient labels as well. We've been hearing natural is good and unnatural isn't, and yet this kind of goes against that, and people are starting to recognize that.
Yeah, it's really hypocritical, isn't it? I mean, we've got and by the way, sometimes people get these mixed up, but there's one that's lab-grown meat, which is the petri dish meat we're talking about here. But there's also the plant-based meat too, right? And if you look at some of these ingredients, especially even in the plant-based, but even, me explaining how they grow the lab-grown meat, it just sounds disgusting to me, number one. But number two is the stuff that you find, these chemicals that try to make this look and taste and feel like real meat. I've known people that have just tried it for 6 months and only 6 months and have gotten there's been some backlash in their own bodies. They don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, we were created with molars for a reason, and that was to eat meat.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep doing it because that's what I like the taste of, and that's what I like, and that's what it was created to eat.
And so you'd think that these things, if they go public and their stocks should be flying high, but if you've ever looked at, say, Beyond Meat or a few of these other ones that have gone public, they haven't really done very well, have they?
Oh, initially they kind of got it running. It was kind of an investment fad, but really since COVID, we had an initial surge in COVID when meat prices were really high, and then the backlash kind of started, and the demand started falling off as the consumer started realizing what they were eating, and now we're finding that the meat industry is fighting back as well, and they're have a more effective marketing campaign to combat what's been put out there by the fake meat industry.
And all you have to do is go back and look at some of those shots of some of those pandemic times when they had the butcher's shelves, and they're all empty. But the things that they did still have around were the fake meat was still there hanging out. So nobody really wanted it, even when that was the last thing that they had to eat. So this is the natural question. We only have about, say, close to 60 seconds left here. What do you think happens to some of these beef prices? Because the higher these meat prices go, the more that could hurt, the real meat, and people could turn to a cheaper alternative. What do you think?
Well, it's been amazing how the consumer is still paying up. Now, that may change at any point. We're seeing choice cut out now at $360 in probe this week, and that's just amazing. And now the B50s are going up as well. It's barbecue season, and the consumer remains resilient. They're complaining, they're depressed, but they're still spending. And when they do end up cutting back on their spending on beef, will they go to pork, or will they just jump to poultry? And they very well may just switch to poultry, but I think they're going to stick with meat.
It just reminds me of when gas went to over $5 a gallon. Everybody wanted electric cars. I feel like that's what we're doing right now with beef. It gets really expensive. Everybody's looking for an alternative. But if beef does settle back down and the price becomes normal again, boy, oh boy, you don't have a chance with fake meat, lab meat, whatever you want to call it. Thanks for coming on, Arlen. You're the perfect person to have that chat with. Appreciate you coming on, Arlen Suderman. He's with StoneX down in Kansas City. All right, how about this? From the depths of that April 8th dip, markets have rebounded with a force, right? That big V-shaped recovery. But there's one troubling trend that could derail the rally, and it's showing up in the bond market, right? Yields are climbing fast, and history says stocks don't play nice with rising yields. So is the worst behind us, or is the storm still brewing underneath the surface? We're going to ask Mitch Rochelle that when the Cow Guy Close returns right after this.
What if I told you that one of the best things you can do to improve the look and performance of your car can be done for under $20 and in less than 30 minutes?
Fix your cloudy and weathered headlights with Cerakote's #1 best-selling ceramic headlight restoration kit in just 3 easy steps and without power tools. Just wipe, sand, and apply. It's that easy. Cerakote restores and protects, and for as long as you own your vehicle, it's guaranteed. You can trust Cerakote with over 60,000 5-star reviews. Don't wait until it's too late. Buy today for under $20.
News that feeds a nation, bringing you the latest in farming, ranching, and Washington policy. Know what's coming before you hit the fields with in-depth forecasts and commodity market insights, helping you stay ahead. Whether you live in the heartland or the city, agriculture impacts you. And RFD-TV has a full program lineup to keep you informed. Saturdays, starting at 8 a.m. Eastern on Rural America's most important network.
This May, RFD-TV recognizes National Beef Month with in-depth coverage on Market Day Report and Rural Evening News.
Mexico is now reacting to Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins' decision to suspend cattle imports due to the spread of New World screwworm.
We're tracking cattle markets, analyzing beef exports, and reporting on the challenges and triumphs facing today's ranchers. Stay informed with the trusted ag news you rely on, only on RFD-TV.
Take that, DirecTV pigeons, and your overpriced satellite TV.
You can't miss.
You can't miss with Dish. Upgrade and save $30 a month, and get 3 months free.
Upgrade to Dish. Save up to $30 a month and get 3 months free.
This Week in Agribusiness has moved to a new time, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Now, I know historically when we see these things increase, when we see farmers get more optimistic, typically it's because there's been a rally.
Join Mike Pearson to wrap up your Ag Week on RFD-TV.
All right, I think we can agree April was a rough month for equities. There's no doubt about it. But from the ashes of our April 8th lows, the market has come back storming, right? And the headlines going forward, I would say they look to be rather bullish. You know, the market should like the House passing the big, beautiful bill. Things turned around a little bit here today. But there are still maybe 1 or 2 rate cuts maybe slated before the end of the year. And we're bound to have a slew of trade deals. Well, so that should make things better, right? Even earnings are holding in there when a lot of folks said they wouldn't. And we've seen that this talk of recession or even stagflation, that's calmed down as well. So is the road ahead looking smoother than I thought it was? Well, we'll see. But maybe I'm still worried about one big fly in that ointment, and that's with rates. Stocks don't like higher rates, and that can kind of put a cap on things. And that's exactly what we're seeing here happen today. The 10, the 20, and the 30-year yields, they jumped recently. And I'd like to ask my next guest if these higher rates could ruin this rally. Would they be the fly in the ointment? Please welcome to the show, Mr. Mitch Rochelle, coming to us. Where is he? Are you in New York today? You are.
I'm in New York. I'm in New York.
That's your New York office. All right. What do you think about maybe, I feel like there's a lot of good things that can possibly happen, right? We're going to do some trade deals. We'll probably I don't think we should get rate cuts, but I have to trade what will happen, not what I think should happen. It seems to me that we'll get one, maybe two. That we should like this bill getting through. It will probably get passed. What's going to ruin it? The only thing I can think of is higher rates. What do you think?
I think the market has more influence on interest rates than the Fed does. Obviously, actions by the Fed impact the Treasury curve.
Yep.
But I think the market is going to influence where anything other than short-term Treasuries land. Now, the Fed used to influence longer duration U.S. Treasuries by buying them. Okay,
Yes.
When they were the highest bid, then that controlled the market. But they're now largely out of the bond buying business. They're in the bond shedding business. The way the U.S. Treasury sheds bonds is when they mature, they don't rebuy them, right? And they just let the marketplace rebuy them. Mm-hmm. So this is up to the market. It's like literally the scales of justice. One side is, at the end of the day, the United States is and will always remain the reserve currency for every central bank around the planet. And they will always show up at Treasury auctions to buy something. But the other side of the scales of justice are at what cost? And I think that that's the really big challenge. I foresee a scenario in which there are less bond buyers, and what will happen is rates will go up, bond prices will come down, and that's something we're going to have to live with. But the challenge is that businesses who finance themselves using benchmark, U.S. Treasury benchmarks, as opposed to SOFR, like in the floating rate space, they can't make decisions when you don't know what your cost of capital is going to be. And to me, that's the biggest issue. It's the uncertainty, not the actual rate, whether the 10 years got, a 5 handle on it or a 6 handle on it. That's not it. It's just the uncertainty over the next 18 months that makes it hard for businesses to do business.
Yeah, the market doesn't like uncertainty. Nobody likes uncertainty. But to your point, we were talking with Nancy Tengler earlier. I'm old, just maybe because I'm old. I don't know, but look, if you're a small business and you can't make money at 5%, you should probably go back and redo something, because these rates really aren't that high. It's only the folks that kind of got out of business school at 2008, 2009 when things were really low, and I think that. You're right. It's not really the rate. It probably is more or less the not knowing the uncertainty. But 5, even 6%. You're right. Once we get people used to that, and also this goes to housing, which is one of your things. Yeah. I think once we have 5 or 6 years of 5 to 7% mortgages, more and more people will start getting back in the market. Don't you think?
Yeah, it's the volatility. Yes, 100%. But it's the volatility in rates where there's a headline that mortgage rates came down that gets people who are less sophisticated home buyers saying, wait, I'm going to wait because they're coming down, right? I say all the time on other networks that if you are waiting for rates to come down as a home buyer, it's a fool's errand. Like, just assume that they don't. And yes, if the trading range for the whatever your benchmark rate is a 200 basis point swing, and that's been proven over a 5-year period, then just know that those are the guardrails, right? Those are in bowling, those are the gutters. You just got to keep the ball in between. But, I'm in the business of building businesses, and, I'm on calls every single day talking about assumptions in some stupid ass Excel model. And we have a really hard time figuring out what we're going to put in for cost of capital. And I always say, make it higher, add 150 basis points to it, so that if this business doesn't make sense, if interest rates go up 150 basis points, maybe we shouldn't be in the business. But I'll say one quick thing as it relates to interest rates and the stock market. Look at what happened 18 months ago when rates started to go up largely because of the actions of the Fed, and everybody in the Magnificent Seven freaked out because all of a sudden, oh, Apple doesn't make any sense if interest rates go up. And I screamed, you talking about Jim Yurio, we were talking about him during the break, I was on his podcast, and we were screaming. Obviously, the F-bombs were flying on his podcast, but we were screaming about how stupid that is. Apple's business either makes sense or it doesn't make sense. And 150 or 200 basis points increase in the cost of capital does not influence Apple's ability to do business when they're sitting on $30 trillion in cash.
They make like $100 billion a quarter, right? I mean, all right, so they make 90.
Yeah, but they're sitting on a ton of cash, so they're not slaves of the capital markets like I am, right? Oh, that's the Republican Party looking for more money from me on my phone right there. They call me every 10 minutes.
All right. Great to have that chat with you. You've got some great, super insight. You brought a lot of things into it. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next week, Mitch. Mitch Rochelle coming to us from New York. All right. You know, a tragic shooting outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. claimed the lives of 2 young Israeli embassy workers. As the investigation unfolds, questions arise. And the rhetoric stemming from some of our legislators definitely has not really helped, right? What could be fueling this senseless violence? So we're going to ask Dr. Carol Swain this when the Cow Guy Close returns right after this.
Tired of feeling hot, sweaty, and sticky? Scorching heat is uncomfortable and exhausting, but not anymore. Introducing Arctic Air Breeze Jet, the hands-free personal air cooler that's lightweight, wearable, and rechargeable. It delivers super powerful airflow to cool you down quickly for instant relief. Check out the massive cooling power in action. BreezeJet pulls in air with ease, allowing it to circulate across your whole body in a refreshing breeze. It's discreet. Just clip to your waist under your shirt for invisible cooling, so you can chill out anywhere, anytime. The secret is a high-powered turbocharged motor with over 7,000 RPMs that delivers a wind speed of over 13 miles per hour. Thermal imaging shows this man is baking in the heat. Now watch as he turns on BreezeJet and gets a blast of cool air. Look at the temperature difference. Arctic Air BreezeJet is whisper quiet, has 3 speeds, and delivers up to 12 hours of runtime for all-day cooling. Plus, it's rechargeable and fits in your purse or glove box, so you're always cool. Let Arctic Air make spending time outdoors more comfortable. Keep your cool while doing yard work or at the job site, and stay refreshed while working out.
It's so hot out here. I can't wait to try this. Let me tell you, that breeze feels amazing.
Sweet relief. I needed this a long time ago. This feels like heaven.
You know, I love the beach, but I hate the heat. This is perfect for me.
Get the Arctic Air BreezeJet for just $19.99. But order now and we'll upgrade your order with the built-in lanyard, so you can wear it around your neck for targeted cooling relief. But wait, act now and get a second BreezeJet for free. Just pay separate fee. And with rising costs, this may be your last chance to get yours at this low price. Supplies are limited, so act now to get this special double offer.
To order, call 1-800-582-4668 or go online at buybreezejet.com. Don't delay. Call 1-800-582-4668 or go online at buybreezejet.com. Order now.
All right, welcome back. This is a tough one, right? This almost feels like one of the biggest I told you so's that I've seen in recent history, right? 2 young Israeli embassy workers were gunned down last night, and the suspect, a 31-year-old named Elias Rodriguez, allegedly opened fire and killed the couple outside the Capitol Jewish Museum shortly after 9 p.m. Wednesday last night in Washington, D.C. Now, the Israeli embassy confirmed that the victims were staffers Yaron Lishinsky, 28 years old, and Sarah Milgram. In a post on X on Thursday, the couple were set to get engaged in Jerusalem next week before they were killed. Wow. And the suspect is from Chicago, according to the Metropolitan Police Department Chief Pamela Smith. I'm not sure we should be surprised, considering the protests at universities, town halls, and through our city streets. And the rhetoric stemming from some of our legislators definitely does not help the situation. You know, this type of violence seems to me to be a natural progression from the hateful rhetoric aimed at our country's Jewish population. And I think a lot of Jewish folks are waking up this morning feeling like they're targets. Now, I wonder what my next guest is going to have to say about this. We're going to welcome to her show. She just popped on, Dr. Carol Swain. Dr. Swain, thank you very much for being on the show. It's a sad day. I really feel like a lot of our Jewish Americans are waking up this morning with target. They feel like they've got targets on their back. But I do think that this was a big "I told you so." You can't keep speaking like our legislators, some of our legislators, especially on the left, speak. You can't keep having these things happen at our universities and these marches through some of our city streets without the natural progression coming to this type of violence, if you ask me.
But I mean, the violence has been going on for a while, and that's why the Harvard students were so concerned. And, that's been almost a year. And so I think the anti-Semitism is something that needs to be watched very closely, but also hatred in general in America. And I think the universities, the fact that they have pushed so much anti-Americanism, they push DEI, neo-Marxism and historical revisionism. They have a lot of angry young people. And the thing that they have tried to tap down on is faith, Christianity, or people who are Orthodox Jews. Those are the people that they have suppressed.
Okay, so what's in it for them to do that? What's in it for them to turn them against their country, turn them against Jewish people, turn them against? I mean, why are they doing this? What's behind this university that are doing this?
I would argue that the neo-Marxists have taken over most colleges and universities in America, and it's anti-Americanism, and their whole purpose is to destroy. They don't have anything to replace it with, and so they are really just pushing nothing, but they are taking away the traditional values and norms that have restrained people's behaviors in the past.
And which really bothers me because, when things rise to this level, and you don't really hear a lot of folks, I would thought calling it out, but I mean, these two kids, I mean, what a tragedy, and going to be engaged in Jerusalem next week. I mean, I can't feel any worse for those families. But this is what you get, right? And we have people on the left that stoke this type of rhetoric.
They do.
And that's what I don't understand. I mean, what is it? What's in it for you to do that?
I mean, I'm just telling you, the anti-Semitism, I'm very concerned about it, but I'm also concerned about the direction of race relations in America. Like, I have been warning about this for years, wrote a book back in 2002, and I see hatred everywhere. And unless we get a handle on this, unless we begin to change the hearts and minds of the American people, it could be very explosive. And so it's not just the Jews, but I would also say that we are at risk for racial unrest in America between whites and blacks and other groups because the hatred has been stoked so much.
And you're going to blame the universities for stoking that hatred? And if you had...
I am going to blame the universities and the crazy professors and some of our members of Congress that are never held accountable for their press conferences where they engage in rhetoric that had they been, regular people, or if they were white, in the case of minorities, they would immediately lose their positions, be ostracized. But because they're racial and ethnic minorities, there have been double standards. But what I see, Scott, is that a lot of white people now are pushing back in a way that I think it makes it even more explosive, because all of a sudden, like, white people have just kept their mouths shut, or they grumbled among themselves. They have not really pushed back as a group. But I'm seeing things on social media that I warned of this back in 2002, and I am worried about our future in America unless we get a handle on it. And there's some people that they don't want to talk about it. We need to talk about it. It's happening.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed is a big difference between, I lived in Europe for 16 years, and a big difference between, say, Europe and even the U.S. In the U.S., we don't talk about things, right? The one, just as an aside, one of the things they always tell you not to talk about at a party, the three things, sex, politics, and religion, right? But when you do talk about those things, it brings the temperature down. But we're told we can't talk about them, and the temperature goes up. Got 10 seconds to you.
Well, we're talking about it on social media. And some statements that are being made that in the past, the people that made the statements that seemed incendiary, they would be attacked. But now I see people agreeing with them. And what I see is that people are shifting into different camps, ideological camps, and it's very dangerous. And a lot of their grievances are legitimate grievances, but talking among yourselves is even more polarizing.
Sure
we
is.
need to hold everyone accountable. And there are things that have to be addressed in this country, and we can't run away from it all.
I agree. Let's take them head on. I'm with you on that one. Thank you very much for coming on and talk about it. It's a sensitive subject. Appreciate everything you have to say, Doctor. Dr. Carol Swain coming to us from Brentwood, Tennessee. All right, I want to take a little look at the old financial, not financial, we've already done those. Let's go to the ag markets and see how they've closed going home here. We've got corn. July up 2 cents to 4.63. We've got a D board that's new crop down 2 1/4 cents to 4.53 1/4. That's how we close there. How did beans close? Beans closed a little bit better across the board. 3 cents to 4 3/4 cents better. July was the one up 4 3/4 cents. 10.67 1/2 was the close there. November closed up 3 cents to 10.55 1/4. Moving along to the wheat, what's going on there? Chicago July wheat closed down 4 3/4 cents to 5.44 1/2. Deese closed down 2 1/4 cents to 5.83 1/4. That's Chicago. Let's go to Kansas City and take a look at the hard red. July closed down 2 ticks, 1/2 cent to 5.40. Everything else pretty much close to unchanged. We closed the Deese up 1/2 cent. 5.77 1/4 was the close there. Let's go to Minneapolis. Take a look at the spring wheat. 4 1/4 cents lower on that July contract. $6 even. We hung on to it. Well, that's what we're doing right now. It's still trading. Deese is down 2 3/4 cents to 6.33. That's the spring wheat in Minneapolis. Let's take a look at cotton. Cotton was kind of quiet today, 44 points lower right now here in July. 65.63 is last. That's where it was basically the last time we visited. Deese, that's down 46 points to 68.25. Let's take a look at how your meats are doing, the proteins. They closed June up $1.47 in live cattle, 215.62 is last there. October closed up $2.15 to 208.22. All right, that's live cattle. Let's take a look and see what feeders have got for us. Feeder cattle, we'll go to August, up $3.35, closed at $299.77. Couldn't put a 3 on it, but the high of the day was 300, spot 20. So there you go, that's close. October, that closed up $3.65 to 296.45. Let's move over to the lean hogs. Let's see what's happening with that. Lean hogs, well, June closed down 82 cents to 98.70. August closed down 35 cents to 102 even. And we did have an up arrow in Deese that closed up 25 cents to 79.35. All right, time now to dial up the old cow phone. Let's get there. Maryland and Texas wrote, I learned from your contributors to buy the dips. I'm glad I did. They have been doing very well. All right, I agree. You know what, Maryland? It's hard, though, when it actually does happen. Everybody's got a great plan until they get punched in the face. That's what Mike Tyson said. Sometimes when you have that plan to buy on the dips, but then you get punched in the face, you get a little nervous when we're on our lows like we were April 8th. But those that stuck to the plan, they were rewarded. This is Tom in Iowa. He says, birds of a feather stick together. All the legacy media does is circle the wagons against whatever their target is. You know, isn't it right, Tom? And it's almost like there's a bat signal that goes out and everybody talks from the same page. It's really kind of weird, I think. But they're all somehow in cahoots, it feels like. No matter who they work for, the talking points don't really ever change. That's what I don't like about it. There's not a lot of independent thinking. Sue and Brian in Florida wrote, I'm going to start considering you the mainstream media. The others should be called the propaganda media. That's all they do. Well, that's right, Sue and Brian. Thanks for writing in. We don't do all that stuff. We're definitely a little bit of a fresher face here. Shoot me a text, the number 615-983-9681. 615-983-9681. Leave your name and state. Don't hold back. This has been the Cow Guy Close. I'm Scott Shellady, otherwise known as the Cow Guy. I'll see you again tomorrow, Friday.
Donald Trump is keeping his promises, and he is on his way to achieving many things that other presidents have only dreamed of. We created the DT-47 to honor the president's great accomplishments, and it has been an overwhelming success. But now we want to introduce the new satin, highly polished package, DT-47, and you can see the difference there. Hand polished, beautiful gun. You, your family, and all your friends will be proud to own this magnificent firearm package. Our guns are heirloom quality, built like a tank, and look like a work of art. Woohoo! All of our products are tariff-free and are proudly made in Texas by Texans for over 30 years now. We are going to continue our $100 discount on the regular DT-47, making your cost only $545.47. At this price, this handgun has become a runaway bestseller. But we will also include the $100 discount on the new satin high-polished DT-47 with the premium holster package. The regular MSRP for this package is $947, but order today and you'll pay only $847. This offer is only for a limited time and only while supplies last. So get yours now while you can still get this special pricing. And as a special surprise to honor the First Lady, we will soon be shipping the very classy First Lady handgun. The First Lady represents class, strength, and beauty, and will be a collector's item as well.
To get more information on these exciting new offerings, go to getbondarms.com. That's getbondarms.com or call 817-5